everyone. Welcome to Heart with Saima. And we talk about different things. Ashok and Nancy are here with me, and we're going to jump right into the show. We come to you first Tuesday of every month, as long as my wonderful friends are all available. And we talk about different issues that have to do with life. It has to do with health. It has to do with our mental well-being, and a lot of subjects that people don't really want to talk about. And we feel that we are bold enough, we are courageous enough to put them on the forefront, discuss them, talk about them, and create an awareness. So welcome to Heart with Saima, and I will let Ashok introduce himself, and then Nancy.
Hi, gang. My name is Ashok Bhattacharya, and I'm the founder of the Empathy Clinic. And what I do as a psychiatrist is I use empathy to assess and diagnose and treat people who come to see me. And it's a powerful approach for me because I always treat my clients as people who happen to have a problem rather than a disease who needs to get fixed. And so I'm what you call a holistic person. Yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm a person first, doctor second. And the people I see are people who happen to have a condition. Thanks, Saima.
Nancy?
Okay, so I'm a human. I am working through living life and being human. Among other things, I am a show host and producer, live show host and producer. I am a Sherpa, as I like to say it, and I guide people through their own journey to what's already within them to find their voice and sort of use their truest self to make connections, community, and ultimately to build their business and their brand. What else am I? I am a cat mom, as you saw, and I am a speech language pathologist by training. I'm a keynote speaker, and most importantly, I'm a community member, and I think the community in the whole is far more important than the individual.
And I think we are all such different people, coming from different backgrounds, based in different parts of Ashok is in Canada, me and Nancy, we are in the US. But I feel that there is that level which brings us all together, and that is the level of kindness, and it's the level of courage, and it's the level of empathy, which I always say on here, that my daughter always says that, Mom, you lack in empathy a bit and you really need to work on it. But I tell her that, you know what, I mean, me as a mom, being where I am, at this place, I do need to leave so much of it behind so I can move forward in my journey as a single mom, move forward with my daughters, with the responsibility that I have. Um, there's so much that I cannot deep dive into. There's so much that I have to just take at face value, and I have to put it on the side, and I have to just keep moving forward. Perhaps that's called survival mode. I'm not sure. Ashok, what
Let's call it wisdom. Let's call it wisdom, knowing where your time and energy are best spent.
Well, I think, Saima, that's an interesting question. We were talking about this before we were on the show. Life is a combination of what happens to you and then how you perceive that and what you do about what happens to you. And some people, and Nancy has spoken about this a lot on the show, have had very complex issues happen in their life, and some people have had relatively minor issues. So it's not necessarily the amount of issue that's happened to you; it's how you perceive it and then what you do about it. And I think one of the purposes that I'm who I am is to encourage people to have hope. And I think one of the things that makes us wonderfully human is to have tragedy and have disaster and catastrophe and trauma, but also to cultivate hope And hope isn't a one-person thing. Hope is a community thing. We can hope as individuals, but we can hope as couples and communities and families. And I think that hope is a way of imagining a better place than the place that you're in, and then finding a way to get there.
And I think that's what I have discovered during these 2 years, 2+ years that I have been live streaming. I've been doing my podcast. That it, it's you know, the amazing people that I've met, coming on here and talking to different people every week. It's actually helped me heal. It's helped me learn so much. Talking to different people, just the amount of wisdom which comes through from different different journeys of every individual's journey is so unique. Their wisdom is so unique. What they bring to the table, uh, the so much growth. I When I look back and I look at myself, my journey kind of began in 2016 when we lost our business, and I just crashed, and I was like, oh my god, okay, you know what, my family is crashing. So I need to extract myself from that disaster, and kind of distance myself so I can get up. Literally how they say about putting the mask first, putting the mask on yourself so that you are able to help others. So building that to extract myself, and then learning from others, and step by step. I mean, it's been a long journey.
Well, and that I just put in the comments, like I start my journey every morning. It's like I've been journeying my whole life, and through different things and through different ups and downs, and the reality of living life, right, is that's always there. Being human, if I'm doing it right, my journey starts every morning with my deciding to get out of bed and see what the day has and what it holds for me. See who I come in contact with that day, because there's going to be people that come in and out of my world and cross my path that bring so much to my journey, and I may not even realize it at the time, but just knowing that as I go, there are things happening every day that are shaping my. You have your guitar, are you taking your requests? That I have to remain open to every day. We were talking before we came on, and I'm pretty honest about the fact that I struggle with my mood. And this has been a period of like it's okay to not be okay. Well, I'm not so okay. And one of the things I've been doing a lot of writing, which hopefully will get posted soon, because one of my depression symptoms is this struggling with initiation. I
Right.
know what to do. I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do. I just can't get myself to do it. And so in writing, reflecting on all these different pieces of the places where I struggle, and finding gratitude for those parts of my journey where, okay, so maybe I've come back to struggling again with initiation. There's still more to learn. But I've been writing because I want to share this journey with people. I believe that each of us has a powerful story that is going to positively impact someone else, right? We like you were saying, Simon, just people you come in contact with, right? You're learning from all the time. And for me, there's been so much in my journey, but one thing that persists, and I know is not unique to me, is struggling with my mood. I started to write something, and again, it will get out there eventually, about just the inner dialogue it takes to get in the shower. And
I think that's all okay.
well, and that it is okay. And for people who don't struggle with depression, it's a little bit foreign to imagine what it's like. And for people who do, it's going to be really familiar and hopefully comforting, right? To know that they're not the only one that, day 3 walks up to the shower and goes, oh, for fuck's sake, just get in there. And for people who haven't experienced depression, what a lovely, beautiful thing. And that openness and willingness to really see what it is. Well-meaning people will say to me, well, just pick one thing. And I love that. I love the encouragement. But for you to really understand that I know what that one thing is. And for the life of me, I can't get myself to do it. I'm exhausted by the thought of doing it. And so our journey, my journey begins every day. Every day is a gift. There's something to learn. And it's not that every day is unicorns and ponies and sunshine and rainbows. Absolutely not. And it's one of the things I remain grateful for, because experiencing the lows really helped me to appreciate and be staying in the moments, right, when that feeling isn't there.
Absolutely, Nancy. And like I mentioned to you guys earlier, I haven't even been on LinkedIn, I think, in a few months. I mean, when you messaged, I was like, okay, you know what, let's do this. But I haven't been doing my podcast. But then I've been doing the radio show. So, it's kind of, okay, so I'm doing the radio show. I go there, I do it. But I haven't been either. I don't know if I'll classify it as X, Y, or Z, but it's just the journey of life. There are the highs and there are the lows. And, even though I'm in a good place right now, but I have just been isolated. I cut myself off from just, a lot of things. And I've been in my own world. Just literally riding the waves, and I think that's okay.
And I think, like a butterfly, sometimes we need a cocoon.
Sometimes we do need a cocoon, but I think, guys, for me, so I work with a lot of people, but who have different emotions. It's really important to differentiate between sadness and depression. When someone is depressed, they might be sad. But if someone says, "Oh, I'm sad that you're feeling sad," it's not quite what depression is, because depression and sadness are different. Because with sadness, you know that you're going to get through your sadness. Sadness is something that flows through us, kind of like water will flow downstream. Depression stops us. It's a dam. You're frozen. Your thoughts freeze. Your body freezes. Your soul freezes. And when you reach inside your soul to find hope that can get you going again, it might not be there. And so when I work with someone who's depressed, one of the first things I need to sort out is, do you have hope? And if they say, well, I do, then they might be experiencing sadness and some depression. If they say, I don't, then this is when it's probably much more likely a depression that they're experiencing. And so when we're empathizing with someone who's sad, it's not the same as empathizing with someone who's depressed, because there's a qualitative difference as well as a quantitative difference. Thank you.
So, Ashok, if it's depression and you're feeling that there's no hope, what do you do? Because I think it's easier to come out of sadness, or just the highs and lows of life that I'm talking about. And then what Nancy is talking about, if it's, it's depression, and if it's that feeling of not feeling helpless, or feeling that the hope is missing, then what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. If I'm struggling with a depressive issue in myself, I don't suffer from clinical depression, but we all have some sense of what depression might feel like. But what I do is I realize that when someone's depressed, one of the easiest things to get them to do is to do something physical rather than something mental. So as Nancy said so eloquently, just get in there, right? Do a physical thing. And interestingly, exercise by itself is an incredible, powerful antidepressant. And so for all the people I work with who suffer from depression, I will encourage them to move. Or sometimes I'll say, let's not sit and talk. Let's walk and talk. Let's get physical and do something that is more movement oriented. And the other thing too is that when people are depressed, typically they don't want to be around other people. They isolate and alienate. So the mere fact that if I'm in the presence of them is I will try to get them to talk. And if they don't want to talk, I'll tell them a story. I'll tell them about something that I did, or my incident with the barracuda in Mexico back in 1989. And then once they're listening and they're engaged, then they're not having to worry about what they're thinking. They're just there to passively in the experience with me. And then, oh, I can engage. I don't have to come up with the content. I can feel the content. And then sometimes, and I'm not a medication guy, but sometimes you have to use medications because some people's depressions are actually related to their brain chemistry getting a bit depleted. So we need to help them with that too. But my first thing is physical. My second thing is talk engagement to see if that can help. And
And
you know, it always does.
And for me, I joke that I'm good at depression. So um, I do retreat, but I do it in a skillful way. So I show up enough that people may not notice it and I can be left alone. But I'm not really showing up. And it's sort of like the fishbowl. Like I see everything happening and it's beautiful and colored and I can see people and they're happy and doing, but I'm on the other side of the glass and I can't reach that and everything is muted. But I will, like I said, I'm good at like, okay, I have 2 shows that I do a week, and every week I will think about getting out of those. Seriously think about getting out of those. But I show up because there's other people and I know if I show up, that's enough. Like I haven't posted a lot lately, but I've engaged on other people's stuff so that I haven't completely disappeared. But it's a lot of times it's a function of, look, everything is fine, right? I'm here. Don't have to worry about me. But it's really giving myself that room to retreat and be by myself. And you said like the lack of hope, Ashok. There are times when I'm depressed where I feel like this is never going to change.
Right.
It's never going to change, but I'm going to continue living with it somehow. Like that's my thing, is like, okay, it's not going to change. Figure out how you're going to live with this. And I can't say I have the answers to that when I'm in that place, because doing anything is so much effort and so overwhelming to do. And it is really painful to be out in the world with people at times when I'm in this place. Like I literally, it's too vibrant and it's too alive for how I'm feeling. And so there's so much, I love this topic because there's some commonalities, but depression is a little bit different for everyone. And I think that's important, because just because we're not talking about something you experience doesn't mean it's not valid. Or you're like, oh, well, I'm fine. I can do this, this, and this, or I could never go without showering. Great. I mean, it'll be up there eventually. I took a post and took a video of my legs because they hadn't been shaved in weeks. And this is radiating real. This is what depression looks like. Right. And for me, like even here seeing, this is so me, I see Denise saying, or Emily was talking about how she also tends to retreat. I know I'm not alone, and I can convince myself I am. I can totally convince myself I am. But at the same time, I remind myself I've gotten through 100% of my worst days. And quite frankly, 100% accuracy, 100% of anything is an accomplishment. Because I'm sure if we polled everyone in the comments, you have fallen asleep without brushing your teeth at least once. You've left the house without remembering to put on deodorant at least once, right? Not 100% accuracy, but I am 100%, like my track record, 100% of getting through my worst days.
So the way I look at what you just said, Nancy, is that if someone was in a room, maybe of 100 people, and it's a vibrant room, for the depressed person, that room becomes pitch black, and they can't see anybody in that room. They're alone in that room, and even there's noise, their ears become deaf. They can no longer hear. So we can't assume that if someone is depressed, that they feel the company around them, or that they feel that they can engage those people around them. And that's why it has to be quite tender, not to be pushy with someone who's depressed. It's that, oh, just snap out of it, or let's just go out and have a pizza and see a movie. Let's just make a lot of noise and rah, because that sometimes can push someone into feeling even more alienated because they can't relate.
Right. To be surrounded by people and feel alone is not a great feeling, right? It's like I totally get that. I'll be somewhere and it's like you can see everybody feel like I don't feel connected to. I know I love these people, right? I know that I would normally enjoy this, but I don't. It's almost like it's past the feeling sad and depressed. It's like I don't feel anything.
So, what can you do to help
I
when
think
the loved ones around you who you see are going through depression, and and you know and you can't really relate because you're not in their world, you don't really know what exactly they're experiencing. How do you comfort them? How do you help them? How do you show support? And how you do you let them know that they are loved and they are not alone?
Ashok, why don't you go from your personal and professional, and then I can tell you from my personal, the things that have helped me.
Well, I'm okay. I think that's a good plan. Some of the things might be very, very connected as well. My rule is to show up, and I think when you show up, you don't have to be chatty. You don't have to bring a tuna casserole. You don't have to say, "Let's put on some fancy clothes and go dancing." Just show up. And I would ask the person, "Look, I just want to be with you. I'm scared or I'm concerned about the state you're in. I'm not going to harass you or bug you. We don't have to talk. And if you don't want me to sit with you, I'll sit in the vicinity of you. I'm just going to show up." And I've sat with clients sometimes for months, and they haven't said very much at all. But they come, and we show up, and knowing that there's somebody else who cares, who can care for you when you can't care for yourself, can actually make a difference. And I think, to me, human beings are human beings for a reason, is that we actually need each other to survive. And when you show up in time, that often makes a profound difference. And later on, when the person's less depressed, they'll say to you, when you showed up, and I was absolutely unkempt, I smelled, I hadn't eaten, I was just in a state of squalor, and you showed up and you were just with me as I am. That can be powerful.
I agree. I will say that there's the two sides. I have so many things to say, but what you're saying is so true. Like especially like when I was going through my divorce, I couldn't show up the way I used to because my community was changing, right? And my community was a place that over time was like no longer safe. If I wanted to show up, it meant that I had to be there with my ex, right? So it just wasn't. And very few people took steps to come to me. And often when I'm depressed, I don't want to be with people, but at the same time, I do. Like that that one person interaction. I don't, but I do. That one person interaction, that one person that comes to you and will sit on the couch. You don't have to get dressed. You don't have to do anything, right? There's no more effort than just having a heartbeat next to you. I've had friends that, couldn't get a sitter or whatever it is, and they've ordered delivery to my home. And, I remember there was one friend who sent it without giving me a warning, and I wouldn't open the door. I'm living alone. There's somebody knocking on my door. I don't expect anyone. I'm not opening it. And she was like, would you, I guess they messaged her. She's like, would you please open the door? It's like, oh, okay. But those things of people meeting you where you're at, whatever that looks like, are huge. Because while I may want to be with people, the effort of getting there is often insurmountable. For me, over time, one of the things I have done is I make a list of things that I can try. Because when I'm in the moment, I can't think of anything that's going to make it better. Nothing's going to work. Nothing's going to make it better. I happen to keep a journal every November, and it's a gratitude journal. And I write down at least 5 things I'm grateful for and 2 or 3 things in the day that made me happy. Right? Because when I look back, I can go, okay, so there's happy. And just recalling the happy memory, even if it's just the moment that I get that breaks the pervasive ick, it's that moment. And if I can string enough of those together, right, then I'm on my way. I'm really moving to another place. I have long said that if I exercise, that's my antidepressant. Now, it's hard for me to get myself to exercise, and I will share 2 stories. One, very depressed years ago. It was around Christmas time. It was probably the first or second Christmas I was divorced. And I was feeling lousy, and I was angry and cranky, and I was in my pajamas. My feet were bare, and I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm going to go for a walk. I have to go for a walk. I'm going to go for a walk. In my pajamas, with my bare feet, didn't stop to do anything else. I live in a condo. I was like, you're going to go downstairs, you're going to go out the front, and you're going to come back up. You've left the house, just, you need to do it. And I did it. And so the next day it was like, okay, you're going to put shoes on. That's the big add to this. You're going to put shoes on and go outside. And the next day it was, okay, you have the shoes on. Now take 5 steps, 10 steps, whatever it was. What I was expecting of myself was quote unquote small and achievable, because I was already beating myself up about so many things I wasn't doing. I didn't want to add one more thing that I was going to fail at. This past weekend, I went and sat at the pool. Again, in my pajamas, like, so oversharing, no bra, had the bathrobe on, totally rolled out of bed and was like, do not stop to do anything else. Because making the decision of what to wear would have stopped me. It would have been too big. Taking the time, I would have talked myself out of it. And so I think there's so much that internally you have to find the strength. And it's okay to let yourself be sad and depressed for a little while, but to eventually say, okay, I have to find the strength in myself to do something, and to rely on our community to really meet us where we are. Really, really be willing to,
So one thing that I want to offer, Nancy, is just as a friend, if you're ever feeling down and you feel that you want to go on a live stream and just pour your heart out and to just share your feelings with the world, just message me. And, I might disappear in my shell and in my cocoon. But if someone messages like you did, what are we doing on Tuesday? It's the first Tuesday of the month. And then I was like, okay, let's do it if Ashok is ready. So anytime you're feeling down and you, irrespective of the hour of the day or time or whatever, and you feel that it might perk you up and take you out of where you are, just message me. And you know what? We will live stream.
I so appreciate that. Because this is good for me. And that's what I have to remind myself, right? I messaged you hoping you would say, no, we can't. Or Ashok would say, I'm not available.
I won't say no. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, like, I messaged because that was my obligation, but I was hoping you'd say no, but really needed and wanted you to say yes. There's so much paradox for me when I'm in that place, but you have the most beautiful, generous heart to offer that support. And I know that you mean it.
I do.
I know you do. Thank you.
Nancy, I just want to mention something that you're saying, that it's a really key issue, especially if you become a therapist, is that a lot of people, when they have almost any psychological condition, but with depression, it's extremely common, is there's always ambivalence. Mm-hmm. So I want to push away, but I kind of want to reach out. I don't want to do anything, but I want to do something. And as a therapist, you cash in on the ambivalent moment, because if someone's going to go that way, that there's a wish. So you're always looking for the ambivalence, because that's the little clues of what's going to tip that scale from depression over to feeling better again. And you describe ambivalence perfectly when you were describing, like, I just don't want to, but I kind of hope someone asks me to dance, and mm-hmm. That kind of feeling. And if no one does, okay, I'll go home and be lonely. But if someone does, maybe that can change, because human beings sometimes can't light their own soul match. Mm-hmm. They need somebody else to light it for them.
Well, and it's helpful when other people reflect back to me how I'm seen and received in the world, because you can sometimes forget that too, right? You can convince yourself that no one's going to notice if I retreat. No one's going to miss me, right? You can get into that game with yourself. And so when people do reflect back to me that I'm seen, do you know what I mean? Even if it's in my yuck, it does make a big difference.
Well, I think people often, when they're depressed, they see the world in a depressed way. Yes. They see themselves in a depressed way. And someone may say hello, and they might not receive that as a warm greeting. They might receive that as a negative experience. And so the challenge when you're depressed, and the challenge as a therapist when you're working with someone is depressed, is you have to accept where they're at. You have to, like you said so wonderfully just before, and then you have to, in some non-intrusive way, suggest where you're at. And if you're in a better place, you can say, look, we can come over here for a minute and we can go back to where you are. You don't want to threaten someone with your happy mood, especially if they're depressed. You have to respect depression. You have to respect when someone is depressed, and it's not sadness, right? Because that can alienate somebody. And little teeny bit by bit by bit. I mean, I've worked with some people, and it's taken years for them to smile when they come to a session. But when they do, and the smile grows, and then they have that soul smile where their whole soul is smiling, it's such an amazing moment. And I think that's what I go for. Look for the ambivalence, look for those little places, and then help someone to come out of that shell.
And I do think it's important to be reminded that you can always come back to it. Like my depression is no less valid if I can enjoy part of my day for however long that lasts, a minute, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, right? It doesn't invalidate my mood. It just gives me a break from it. It reminds me what's out there. And even if I can't quite reach it yet, it's an important thing, right? To be able to experience, no matter how quick of a moment it is, that feels good.
Absolutely. I'm having a weird idea right now.
Go for it. Weird ideas are my favorite.
Tim is literally harassing me here.
Oh yes, go ahead.
He wants me to perform a song here.
Okay, let's go for it.
Do it.
So, do you guys know "Ahead by a Century" by the
No, but I can get lyrics somewhere, and I already promised to not sing a single note on key, so I'm ready to go.
So there's a song. So Gord Downey is a famous leader of a Canadian band called the Tragically Hip, and pre-COVID he got brain cancer and passed away. But before he passed away, he did a concert that was seen all over Canada, and the CBC played the Tragically Hip concert on every TV station. There was no commercials. Our Prime Minister was sitting in the audience watching the show, and Gord's brain was not functioning so well. They had his lyrics up there, and he was reading them, and he was such an incredible performer. And shortly after the show was over, he actually passed away. But he wrote a song. He wrote lots of songs about depression, because I'm pretty sure he struggled with it. If you listen to his lyrics, they're deep, and they talk about the human experience from his experience, and allow us to
Probably, Tim. Just get them in case.
So, do you want to grab the lyrics there, Nancy, before we get going with it?
Say it again.
It's called "Ahead by a Century," and it's by the Tragically Hip. And just let me know when you get it, so we can because both Saima and Nancy have agreed to at least attempt to help with the song, and anything that comes out of the mouth will be acceptable.
Just to say, I don't know if I was going to said I would help. I just said I would participate.
Well, you definitely will participate. So I'm going to play this on my Martin acoustic guitar, because it is kind of a you hear that?
Yeah, beautifully.
First thing we climb a tree, maybe we'll talk or sit silently, listen to our thoughts with illusions of someday, casting a golden light, no dress rehearsal, this is your life. The hornets stung me, and I had a feverish dream. Revenge and doubt, tonight we smoke them out. Ready, girls?
I'm ready.
You were ahead by a century. You were ahead half century. You were a half century. I stare at the morning shroud. Then the day began. I tilt your cloud. You tilt my hand. Then the rain falls in real. Rain fell through the night. No dress rehearsal. This is your life. That's when the hornet stung me, and I had a serious dream. We're revenge and doubt. Tonight we smoke them out. Ready? You were ahead by a century. Ahead by a century. You were ahead by a century. One more time.
Got it.
You were ahead by a century. You were ahead by a century. You were ahead by a century. And disappointing was getting me down.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Well, there you go. I never thought that anyone would get me
That
to
was
even
pretty
attempt to
awesome.
sing, but it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, it really talks
was
about
so awesome.
depression and smoking it out, because it was the hornet that stung him. And I guess he was talking to his girlfriend in a tree and was trying to explain his mood to her. And I really think it's a beautiful song. And I often play that on stage, and people, yeah.
He was enjoying the music too.
Fur friends.
Anyway, guys, thanks for letting me do that.
Of course.
Oh my
We
God,
had-
thank you.
that was wonderful. I've been asking you for a long time, Ashok.
Well, I tonight was the night.
There you go. Emily, is Pearl with you? I feel like Fur Friends might be with us. That's another great thing, I will say, for mood. Our Fur Friends.
Well, I
I
think
see you smiling, Nancy. So I would like to know how Ashok's song kind of did it perhaps kind of take your thoughts away from you and what you're going through? Did it make you just kind of flow with the music and take yourself away from your own thoughts? Share what you're feeling.
So music in general for me, like I love music, and especially like very like meaningful songs. The words matter to me. And so for me, this song fits that perfectly, but also it was because it was a community thing, right? It was bringing a community together, right? Where we were all in the same place together. And that always lifts my spirits to be part of the bigger picture. And oh my gosh, that baby is so cute. And just what other people enjoy, right? That for me helps. Like if I'm helping others, if my mind's engaged in something else, part of something bigger than myself, often is very helpful for me. I can't do it for myself, but I can do it for someone else or for a larger community.
Wonderful. Well, see how I mean, because I noticed the difference in Nancy's facial expression, and Nancy is literally like she's smiling cheek to cheek right now.
Well, I think what's interesting about music for me, and I've been a musician since I've been 15, like seriously at it, is that music, that every culture has music.
Yeah.
And you can get 100 people in a room and say move in sequence, and they won't know what to do. You turn on some music and you can get 100 people to move in perfect sequence. And that's because music is a natural empathizer. It increases the chance that people will move to the same beat in the same direction. And think about that. If you're depressed and you're alone, and suddenly you're swaying like the tides in the ocean with other people, there's that movement thing again. Plus, you're beginning to align with other people in a safe way. You don't have to expect to be anything than just where you are. And music has a very powerful elevator to our mood as well. And also, and let's not forget this, mood can be melancholy, it can be sad. So if I'm feeling particularly down, I don't listen to up music, I listen to down music, and it actually empathizes with how I feel. And ironically makes me feel a bit better.
Oh, yeah, I have like I have the different playlists, like, it's like Angry Girl playlist, or, Don't F with Nancy playlist. And other ones. And typically, like I said, the words matter to me, like deep meaning resonates with me. Yeah, and it does. Yeah.
Absolutely. It just makes me so happy to see you radiate, Nancy, and it's just always so wonderful to come together and to talk about um, the problem with mental health issues is that it's not visible, so nobody can see it. So that you know it's so difficult for people like myself, even when I see my loved ones experiencing depression, for me to really be there for them, because I just don't know how to.
Mhm. Yeah, I get it. And like Ashok said, respecting depression, it's not something that someone else can fix for me.
And I think, Saima, just to dive into that a little bit, to have a I need to fix this mentality for someone who's depressed might be seen by the depressed person as intolerance of the state they're in. Like, snap out of it, we need to fix this. And it's much more effective from my point of view, and I'd like to hear Nancy's point of view too, is to just be with them where they're at and say, look, if you need to feel this feeling, I'm just going to be here with you, just right over there. And that to me is a more powerful. So the idea that I need to do something for this person, really, you need to kind of actually forget about that. So I just need to ask this person how they want me to be with them. They may be able to tell you, but they may not be able to tell you. But the easiest thing is to sit there. And I'm a hugger and a hand holder, and I like music in the background sometimes, or sometimes if I'll just bring a book and sit with someone and read my book while they're just doing what they're doing. It's about showing up and being with. And one of the things I love about Tim Stone so much is his show, Perspective on Cancer. And cancer always causes depression. Everyone who gets a cancer is now feeling alienated, isolated. They've had an egregious situation. They can't relate to it. They're numb, and so they often have symptoms of depression, and they lose hope, especially if they've been diagnosed with something horrific. And the absolutely amazing, beautiful thing that Tim's doing is he's creating a community of people who can show up for each other, showing up. And I think that's the theme of that, I think, is so powerful and eloquent. And people who are depressed don't necessarily feel comfortable asking people to show up for them. But when people do, they often don't say, go away.
Yeah. And so I was just writing 3 quick things. I know a powerful question that I've been asked that I ask others: is there anything that I can do to support you in this moment? Is there anything you can think of? Right. And for me, often when people say that, it's like, you're doing it. Like, even if it's through a text, right? You're here with me where I'm at. And I think the compulsion to fix, I understand we don't like to see anyone we love in pain, but fix, right, already has a connotation of like, I'm broken, there's something wrong, and we need to fix it, and we need to fix it as fast as possible. And for me, I start to feel pressure, like I'm disappointing the people around me, that I can't do it, or that I'm not doing it quickly enough, that I can't. And that certainly doesn't help. And it, for me, typically pushes me into faking, and presenting, to certain people like, oh, I'm fine, because that makes you feel better. And, I don't want to be thought of as broken or causing you pain, my mood causing you pain. And so I think, yeah, it's hard to know how to be there, because everybody's support looks different. So just the willingness to even check in.
I think what Nancy's saying is so key. And the incidence of depression in comedians is very high. Lots of very successful stand-up comedians, people who their profession is to make us laugh. They're very depressed and sometimes tragically suicidal people.
Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's this thing we called in our business masked depression. So the person actually puts on a happy mask and is smiling at the world, and on the inside they're dying of depression, and they don't want to tell anyone. And everyone thinks they're happy because this is the persona that they're putting out to the world, but on the inside, and that creates this huge divide between how they're seen on the outside. And then if that person does in fact end their life, people say, we didn't know that was going on. It was, who knew? And that's the danger with people who have masked depression, is that they can come into my office almost smiling. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you're not here because you're happy. I think you're here because of another feeling. And that's when you get into what they need to be talking about.
And Ashok and Nancy, that is something that I've kind of gone through. I'm a problem solver. So as soon as, even when my kids are talking to me, I'm automatically thinking, okay, so how do I try to fix this? Or how do I try to find a solution to this issue? And multiple times, my daughter, and this is something I'm learning right now, she's told me that I don't need for you to fix anything. I just need for you to just sit there and to just listen. And that is something that I'm learning right now.
I was just typing, like, sometimes the best solution is to give the problem space. Like, just don't, like, the best solution is to do nothing. Just let be what it's going to be.
And hasn't been easy for me.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's hard for me to teach myself that, no, just back off. Just, just shut up and just sit and just listen. Just don't try to do anything.
And again, it's really difficult and understandable that you would want to relieve any pain that someone you love is feeling. I get it. Like, I don't think anyone is ill-intentioned when they try to help fix it. But it's also hard for me to explain to people, like your daughter, like, you finally get to the point, like, stop trying to fix me. Like, it's too much pressure. It's too much pressure to try and be okay right now because you do something to help me, right? It becomes overwhelming. And if you think about it as that the learning and growth is in the struggle, which I know Saima, right? You've been there. If we solve the problem for someone, we are robbing them of the opportunity to grow.
And I want to add to this conversation because it's exciting me so much. When someone comes to me and tell me a problem, the minute I start offering to fix it, they're going to stop telling me the problem. The conversation about the problem is going to stop. So my technique is to ask my client or my friend, I'd like to hear more about this. And they'll tell you more and more and more. And then you're realizing that the initial problem that you thought was the problem that you needed to fix was maybe a symptom or actually a decoy, and that wasn't the problem at all. And people, once you use your ears as a resting place for their words, will tell you more. But if you kind of close your ears and start saying, well, let's fix this right now, the actual problem may not be delivered. And so you can pull a dandelion by just pulling out its top out. But if you don't get to the root of it, it's going to keep coming back. And this is why empathy is so powerful, because you really just, and this is the solution, Saima. Tell me more about that, as opposed to, well, let's fix what you just told me, because there's always more to the story. And quite frequently, simply allowing someone to as Nancy said, to deliver their entire story and show the space around that story, that can be very therapeutic to that person, to have someone listen to their whole story rather than, no, okay, let's just fix this. And that just might be a little tiny piece of the story.
And like, I agree. Cause like, I can tell you that, yeah, not showering is a problem. Not paying your bills isn't a problem, but the deeper problem is this, I guess, lack of initiation, right? And the ambivalence that, oh, well, I could, but I couldn't, and I don't really care. Like, so you can go through and fix, okay, well, you got me showering every day, but what about all the other stuff, right? The underlying is still going to impact other things. And I think that there's so much power in listening, so much power in letting people safely struggle. There's so much power in, you know, hearing people out. And, you know, like sometimes I ask myself the question, like, in an ideal world, like what would it look like? What would be happening? What would I be able to do to get out of this? And just to start, you know, trying some things on. And I think it's very powerful to thank people for sharing their story, sharing their feelings, their thoughts and emotions with you, and to create that space that they know, like Saima, you just invited me into, that they can come back to at any time.
Yeah, it's again, that's life. You know, as long as we are alive, we are going to keep evolving. We are going to keep learning, and um, I definitely am on this journey where I'm continuously evolving and changing and learning, um, and you know, thank you guys. Every month you come and you help me, you know, become a more aware version of myself, who's working on her empathy levels to satisfy her daughter.
Daughter.
So, any last words, Ashok? Anything you want to say about depression? Because I wasn't really sure what we were going to talk about today. But and you know, we've been doing this maybe almost maybe a year now, but we have never really talked about depression. I think this is like the first time we've gone in so much depth about depression.
Yeah, all you need to catch me in a depressed moment.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is really, I'm just going to echo everything Nancy said, because she just said it way better than I can, and that is that give people, allow someone who's depressed to have their depression, right? It's not a recipe, it's their depression. It's very unique to who they are and how they are. Give them the space to experience it. Give them the space to talk about it. If they're not ready, give them the space and be patient. Being patient with someone who's depressed is a very powerful message to them, that you accept them, as they are. You're going to be there when they're ready. You might give them a little nudge or two, cashing in that ambivalence thing we talked about earlier, and that actually works. But I think it's not sadness, as I said earlier, and you know me, guys. It's empathy is always the way to help someone who's depressed. It never fails, because it doesn't judge them and it gives them that listening perspective.
Nancy?
Oh, I want to say thank you to the two of you in this beautiful community who did exactly what we were talking about, right? They all were here supporting and being empathetic and participating in the conversation with us and letting me know I'm not alone. And you know, all of you empathetic, intuitive people who just know, thank you. You're amazing. To people like you, Saima, who are so dedicated to learning, I thank you. And to people out there who are struggling, I think one of the most important pieces is, like I said, it's okay to let people safely struggle, but safety is really important. Like we're saying, let the person come to you. All of that goes out the window if they're at risk for hurting themselves. And don't worry about them hating you, or like it, you know, that if someone's at risk for hurting themselves, the most empathetic thing you can do is make sure that they're unable to do that because they're receiving the care in a place where that can't happen. I have so much that my heart wants to say that I don't have words for. And I know that you all know my heart, and so you know what I would say, or at least feel what is happening for me. And again, just deep gratitude and thanks to the two of you and this amazing, amazing community.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, if you feel overwhelmed and you want to just live talk about whatever you're going through, just message me and we will just go live and just talk about, because there are just so many people around us. Literally, we have, people who have loved ones who are suffering. Ashok, who works with people who are suffering and who who has knowledge and who has wisdom to share, and then you, Nancy, you not only have the wisdom but your own journey, and your empathy to help others. So it's just between us, just these different perspectives to help people who are listening and who are tuning in, where we are helping someone or the other in some different capacity as to what we can do to make this world a better place for people who are suffering, who are going through different phases of depression, or if it's sadness, like I like what Ashok said earlier. So we're all here, and anything we're able to do to contribute to the community. I do appreciate everyone on LinkedIn who has been continuously with us and sending all these so many messages. So thank you all. Thank you so much, everyone. And we are ending our show. And as always, thank you everyone for being here. It's such an honor and such a privilege to be able to come here, to be able to learn, to be able to share. So thank you all for joining us today, and hope you stay well and stay blessed. And I'm going to end the broadcast. So thank you all for joining us on Heart to Heart with Saima.